a very interesting child, and it gives us another chapter. You see what happened. This is an 8-year-old child who presented to us with complaints of pain in the bilateral ankle joints and the thighs. For pain, this child was hailing from Bihar, and this child had been running from pillar to post in Bihar for the last about 5 years. The pain was so much that at time the child there was difficulty. You see, it was gradually progressive, and there was causing difficulty in performing the daily chores. Now, what happened after that, when there was pain was continuing, the child was not able to go to the school, child was having, then what happened, it was followed by development of nodules over the bilateral proximal interphalangeal joints in the hands and the feet. You see, I can focus it here. These are the where I'm putting my, in the proximal interphalangeal joints, there were nodules which was after the pain. I think after about 3 years or so, this child started having these nodules over the proximal interphalangeal joints in the hand. And you see, I'm trying to focus. This was something, these nodules which I'm trying to circle, the nodules also were seen in the angle of the mandible. Of course, there were no significant history of fever. Examination, when the child came to us, I think this was a child who came to my hospital about 6 months ago. And this child was referred from the skin department, basically because this child had cutaneous lesions, proximal interphalangeal joints got involved, and on the mandible, which I'm trying to focus, there were the nodules which were being seen. But for the further review or for the expert opinion, because of the pain and all, child was not able to walk very well. So child was referred to us. When we saw this child, there were nodules just seen on the vitals were stable. Nodules were seen on the interphalangeal joints of the hand, elbow joint also. And they were hard nodular lesions which are seen over the angle of the mouth, which I'm trying to focus. CNS examination revealed the conscious baby. The power tone, everything was okay. Deep tendon reflexes were, of course, not elicitable. So deep tendon reflexes were, of course, not elicitable. Child was conscious. The tone power at that time was normal for the age. But one definitive thing was the reflexes were not elicitable. Vessel systemic examination is normal. So having said that, now my questions are, what is the possible diagnosis? So here you have a child. What is the possible diagnosis? A little difficult case, but then you must know this was a case of a juvenile dermatomyositis. Of course, in juvenile dermatomyositis, it has got two components, that is the dermal part and the myositis. And in the myositis, what happens is there is a vascular inflammation. There is an evidence of vasculitis. And in the evidence of vasculitis, you see there is some kind of an heliotropic rash which is there over the eyelids. In this child, of course, this rash was not there. Just for your knowledge, I have tried to focus it here that there was a heliotropic rash is usually seen in juvenile dermatomyositis because of the vasculitis. There is involvement of there is inflammation and is a heliotropic rash which has been focused here. But yes, when the child came to us, this is the magnified view that in the proximal interphalangeal joint, distal interphalangeal joints, these are the kind of nodules which is seen, and they are called Gottron papules. So if you have a patient like this, you see, but because there was evidence of myositis, and because of the myositis, this child was having the pain. Of course, the tone power was okay, but reflexes had become were not elicitable. Now, how will you confirm such a child? If you get a case of juvenile dermatomyositis, how will you confirm it? The first and foremost thing is go in for a creatine phosphokinase. So CPK levels are much raised. So when the CPK levels, because you see there is inflammation of the muscles and it can run into thousands, so CPK levels are much more higher. So that's the most sensitive test. But then let me just tell you here also, you see, juvenile dermatomyositis is a heterogeneous disorder. If there will be cases where the superficial or the skin involvement is much more and the muscular involvement is much lesser. In those cases, there will be few cases where the CPK level may also be normal. So you don't go into that all patients of JDM or juvenile dermatomyositis will have a high level of CPK. No, it all depends on the involvement of the muscles. So it may start with the skin lesions, which I have tried to focus it here, the Gottron papules, or because of vasculitis, you have heliotropic rash over the eyelids, and maybe there will at a later date there is involvement of the muscles. So if so long there is not much involvement of the muscles, there could be CPK levels can still be normal. So otherwise you must keep in mind that this is the most sensitive test. Then the other test which has now come is the MRI of the muscle, which reveals muscle edema, muscle hyperintensity. Electromyography can be done. Very important test is the nail bed capillary flow, because I said there is evidence of vasculitis, and in the nail bed capillary flow gets impeded, there will be a lot of circles or whorls, and that can be found out the evidence of vasculitis by doing the nail bed capillary flow. Now, as I said, there are so many antibodies which are available. A spectrum of the test, that is muscle antibodies, are there. Depending on the availability or the presence of those antibodies, the severity of the JDM can also be defined, like anti-GO, anti-MI. So there are so many antibodies. So myositis specific antibodies tests can be carried out. And that is, of course, not possible at all the centers, but in the referral centers, these myositis specific antibodies can be sent. Of course, muscle biopsy is one of the procedures to be carried out, and that would reveal us perivascular atrophy. Now, diagnostic criteria for juvenile dermatomyositis will be: you have a classical rash, which I focused it on. You have either a heliotrope rash, Gottron papules, and plus three of the following. So you have an elevation of the muscle enzymes, creatine kinase, AST, LDH, aldolase, they all can be raised. Then you have electromyographic findings, and the electromyographic findings are short and small polyphasic motor unit potentials, fibrillations, positive sharp waves, insertional irritability. So all these things are there. But yes, after the advent of MRI, less of the times we go in for the muscle biopsy or the electromyographic changes. Yes. Muscle biopsy, as I said, it could also reveal us the necrosis or inflammation. So these are the diagnostic criteria for the juvenile dermatomyositis. The next question was, how do you manage the above condition? Yes. In this condition, it's an autoimmune disease. And in this autoimmune disease, what happens is that you need to give steroids to these patients. And steroids are given in the dose of 2 milligrams per kg per day. If respiratory and oropharyngeal weakness is there is difficulty in swallowing, then IV methylprednisolone for about 3 days can be given, which will reduce the inflammation. Following that, you have to give these steroids in the same dose as 2 milligrams per kg per day, and that has to be continued for about 12 months in the tapering doses, in the tapering fashion. So it reduces the inflammation. And now what happens is, sometime along with it, we have been using the immunosuppressants also. And the most common immunosuppressant which we have been using in such patients is the methotrexate. And methotrexate is given in the dose of 15 milligrams per meter square weekly. It can be given orally and or subcutaneously. Along with it, you must remember it's an antifoliate drug. So always give folic acid along with, to reduce the toxicity and the side effects of the folate inhibition, which the methotrexate does. Right? So this is the drug. These are the things. Yes, as I said, JDM is a heterogeneous disorder, and supposing there is no involvement of the muscles, only the superficial or the skin changes are there, cutaneous involvement is there, then even it is mentioned that you may just give hydroxychloroquine. So hydroxychloroquine can be given, which reduces the rash, it maintains the remission, and the dose of 4 to 6 milligrams per kg per day. Yes, so this is what happens. Intravenous gamma globulin is adjunct to the treatment of the severe disease, and there is basically only 3 doses or every 2 weeks for 3 doses, then every 4 weeks as needed. So it can be given in between as an adjunct to the treatment for steroids as well as the immunosuppressants like methotrexate. Other immunosuppressants also have been used or they are mentioned in the literature, but the most common immunosuppressant which is being used is the methotrexate. Of course, the physiotherapy and occupational therapy needs to be carried out and avoid the sun exposure, sunscreen use to be done. You see, in this, I forgot to mention this. If there is a complication, like in this child, what are the complications? You could see on the mandible there were nodules, and that is what was there is that's called calcinosis cutis. And they are the complications that supposing the child there was already a delay here, and there was already a delay of 5 years in the diagnosis of this disease before the child ended up with us in the hospital about 6 months ago. Now, what happened? This already the child had developed the calcinosis cutis. So, what is the calcinosis cutis? This is a dystrophic deposit of calcium phosphate crystals in the subcutaneous planes of the nodule, which this child had. I focused on the slide that in this child, let's again I show you. See this? This is how this is called calcinosis cutis. So this is what happened. So there were nodules and the white flakes were coming out of this. The calcium crystal or calcium crystal were coming out of this. So that is why it is written as calcinosis cutis. Other complications could be lipoid dystrophy, cardiac complications can occur, as mentioned here. There could be even pulmonary complication, interstitial lung disease, gastrointestinal disease, vasculopathy of the gut or dysphagia. That's basically if the fellow is not treated, the child can have profuse bleeding and there could be vasculopathy of the gut or there could be dysphagia. So the child can die because of the vasculopathy. That is what is there. I thought that I will talk about this disease as a whole, the diagnostic criteria, what is the treatment. So that is the case of a juvenile dermatomyositis.